Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Success Series. I am your host, David Berg, with our co-host, Michael Kanowski. This is episode number 27 of the series. We have a very special guest today, Marla Maples. For those of you that don't know her, Marla is a creator and networker of all things. She has hosted a podcast, TV show host, actress, philanthropist, creator, spiritual guru, wellness. I mean, she does it all. We're super excited to be here with her today, and I'm sure we'll get into her story. Marla, if you could just give us a little background, who you are, where you came from, and
Thank you so much. The planet of the Pleiades. I landed on planet Earth a few years ago, and it was just such a journey because I was born in a very small town of 500 people called Cohutta, Georgia.
Okay.
Native American territory. So I'm probably 1/16 Cherokee Indian, which are the roots I really love the most, like loving the earth, loving natural healing, loving to connect to God. And I, grew up going to church. My dad was a choir director and deacon. My mother taught Sunday school, and they were the prettiest, hottest couple around. And they loved to perform. And all of the, each year there'd be a beautiful event for a talent show. Mom and dad would go in and perform. And so my mom was so beautiful and a great dancer. My dad had a voice that was so powerful, still does. And so I grew up with these parents in this godly small town in Georgia, just learning all about Christendom. And then at the age of 17, I went away to University of Georgia to study marketing. And on that path, I was asked to work in the film and television industry and started modeling. Took me to New York on my 21st birthday. Yeah, I decided to dive in deep and see the other side of the world that you didn't see in a small town in Georgia. And it was good because I think contrast is really important in life.
Was there fear when you went from that little town in Georgia and jumping into the big city?
It was just like going into the cold water. Something in me just knew it. I followed my intuition quite well on that one. Now, times you don't is when you get in trouble. But yes, everything inside of me just said you're meant to do more. And I thought about going to California as an actress first, and then there was a messaging that came through to me that warned me about California.
Really?
Yeah, and I chose to go to New York, and I thought I'll study with the best coaches in the world.
Right.
So I started studying acting there. Had the chance to work as an actor, and ended up doing Broadway and off-Broadway, and had a great time just connecting with those communities in the city with a lot of heart, a lot of soul, and a lot of hard work.
Right. It seems like it comes natural to you. We see you today. You're very lively, very outspoken. Was that always inherent to you when you were a young adult, teenager? Were you always like that, or did it?
I think I was very shy.
Really?
I feel, and I still am at certain times, but we were talking earlier off camera about how I've decided now's the time to use my voice again. Right. And it's an important time to be able to do that. And I think as a kid, my dad had this voice as a singer he was so talented. So I was like, oh, how do I compete with that? My mom was the most gorgeous woman, and she just had a personality. So I was like, how do I compete with that? So I had to find my own way in that. And they were very supportive parents, but that was my own, I think, insecurities and self-doubt that made me feel intimidated to use my own voice.
Right. And then were your parents proponent of moving to New York City and leaving Atlanta, Georgia, or not even Atlanta?
Not even. Are you kidding me? 500 people. There was 500 people in my small town. I think my parents got married when my dad was 17, my mom was 18.
Okay.
And they were going through divorce. So 21 years after they'd been married. So I had been helping them through their transition. They were always more than just parents, but very close friends. And they were really working on finding their way. And I'd been in a bit of an abusive relationship with the first fellow I'd ever been with.
Right.
And I needed to get away from that. And so they supported it. They supported me leaving. I sold my car.
Right.
My dad, I was raised, with a lot like upper middle income. And my dad and mom always gave me everything. But this was a tough time for my family. And my dad's company had started to falter. So I was like, I got to go to New York and make it there.
Yeah.
I can make it there. I can make it anywhere. So I moved there on my 21st birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so take us, okay, so you came there as a model / actress.
Yeah.
How did that evolve? How did it grow into the person you are today? Kind of guide us through that journey.
I think it just taught me to dig deep past my fears, auditioning for Broadway shows, getting my voice out there again when I was very insecure about it. I'd basically given up the dance and any of the arts that would have helped me make money. I gave up because I love basketball.
You do, right?
And I still do. I played throughout school.
Yeah.
And sports was really where I felt the most confident. Probably still where I feel the most confident today. But the opportunities did not come through, hey, let's watch Marla become an WNBA player. It's like, we had some fun playing with the actors unions and the crew unions. It was a lot of fun, but not really a moneymaker for me.
Right.
So I had to learn how to, how could I do what I love and do something artistic, but also be, create the sustenance for my family, because it was a tough time for my family then too.
Completely. And everybody knows that Broadway and even Hollywood, right? It's never as glamorous as it may seem. It's a lot of work.
No.
So kind of how is that where you're making money initially? Was there
I had to prove myself. I mean, I had to go at the bare bones equity, the lowest rate at that beginning, because I had not done Broadway, and I'm out there with girls that have been hoofing their way through, their whole lives. And yes, I was a dancer when I was a kid, but I gave it all up for sports. So I had to get on my tap shoes, my gymnastic shoes, my jazz shoes again, and I had to start coaching vocally. So there was a lot going on at one time for me then, and I really had to prove myself, because there's there can be a lot of jealousies if you you step into a position that maybe some of the other girls thought that they were right for, and so I really had to work hard.
Right.
And we sold out almost every night. So it was great. We were able to, get a lot of people seeing a really great show called the Will Rogers Follies. And before I came in, they'd won 7 Tonys.
Wow.
So it was big shoes to fill. Big shoes to fill, but we did it. Just the most incredible cast. And Tommy Toon was directing it, and choreographing and directing it, and just great folks. So I had to learn about the city really quick.
Right. You kind of just jumped into the water. And
I was mugged. I was slapped around by folks. I would go up to people I'd see go down the street and go, "Hi, how are you?"
That's right.
And like,
get out of my
face. Wow, you don't like the love, do you?
Right.
Hard.
Yeah, and that was when New York was really hard, right? It's kind of something up a bit since then.
Well, right now it's pretty tough again.
Yeah.
But during those days, it was right before the transition started happening.
Yeah.
Before I think Giuliani got in and helped with crime, and the police got strong again, and you were on the streets and anything could happen.
Yeah.
I had a guy, great little story, because we both study a lot, do a lot in the spiritual worlds. I joined my church. It was before I knew Kabbalah, because I'm a student long-term of Kabbalah, but I was joining a church called the Marble Collegiate Church in New York, and we would have these after-church meetings, and you'd walk out feeling so good, feeling the light, feeling great. And I had a dream the night before this instant I'm going to share with you happened, where I was mugged, and unfortunately in the dream, the guy attacked me in a more physical way. And I was walking home to take the Uptown bus, because I was still struggling. I was working hard, but still struggling to make ends meet, just getting by. And I had 4 quarters to take the bus uptown. and I wanted to go this way. It was a little quicker route. And I started walking midways down the block, and I saw a guy on the other side of the street. And I was like, wow, he kind of looks like the guy in my dream.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, shoot. But you know what? I'm afraid if I turn around and go back, he'll think that I'm walking away because I'm afraid.
Right.
And I don't want him to feel bad. I don't want to judge him just by seeing him, and so what did I do?
You walked right.
Walked right into it. Yeah, he came right over to me.
Really?
I think now, there was a time there was a screwdriver robber. I thought it was a knife, but he was a screwdriver robber. Wow. And he had put the screwdriver in I had on a big coat. Yeah. And he hit me right here. Wow. And he said, give me your bag. And I was like, okay, I'll give you the bag. Then he started walking away. I'm like, could you just take out what you want and leave the purse? Like my mom gave it to me.
Like, I just want the purse.
I want the
Take
purse
the phone,
back.
take the wallet.
I had to keep the 4 quarters.
Yeah.
And he turned around, looked at me, and went, then the dream flashed in my mind again. I went, are you crazy? I'm like, go.
All right.
It's okay. Just go.
Wow.
But that was like a point where God was really warning me. I was getting the messages of getting a warning. That's why I say to everyone, follow your intuition. Listen to your dreams. And no reason that should have happened.
Right.
So that was, things were going good, but things were really challenging in New York at the same time.
I'm sure it's a challenging city. So let's go to the Broadway. So you're on a live stage. There's a full-out audience in front of you. Is your heart racing? Are you sweating? Like, what's the feeling?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't begin to believe what it's really like. And every insecurity comes through, even though you're being trained by the best people in Broadway. You're like, I don't know it. How do you think I know it? You know it. Trust me. I'm like, I need to write everything on my hand, my lines, so I'll remember it. You really have it. I'm like, the music's come up. What if I remember? They're like, trust, you know it. And I would open the show coming up in this elevator with my back to the audience. So I could hear the audience in the background from this elevator murmuring. I'm like, oh. And I'd come up the elevator, then I'd have to turn around and I'd start my little song and dance.
Yep.
And once you started that and you could feel the energy of the audience, it was like,
then it's a sigh of relief. Then you're enjoying it.
And then you can just have fun.
So Broadway, modeling.
Yeah.
What was kind of the next stage of your life from that point? Where you were single at the time when you were initially in New York?
Yeah, I'd met my ex-husband, Donald, and we were dating at that point. And always a complicated relationship.
Yeah.
And so happy for every transition that we went through, because now today we can be friends. He's the father of my child. Right. And I know where his heart lies. So yes, during those days, it was interesting because we had a lot of eyes on us. And when you have a lot of eyes on you, it's challenging to have a relationship.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of judgment.
I'm sure.
A lot of jealousy, lashon hara, as we say. So we had to really push through it and learn to trust each other more than what the world might be saying. And, I was bullied a lot in the media, and I was learning a lot through every situation that came before me. I didn't do things perfectly, and I had to learn some tough lessons. Right. But, the love that we had was very real and very strong, and lifetimes. It wasn't just, it was like very, very, very deep connection. Yeah. But with it being a deep connection, it didn't make it an easy one. We challenged each other in many, many ways. But, I kept working. I never wanted to stop working, even though, him being in my life, I could have been completely supported by him, but I always felt that it was important to do my best to keep my own identity. It's kind of a joke now. Yeah. Like, you can run, but you can't hide from it, right? But I really did want to protect the Maples name. Right. I'm my dad's last of the generation to have that name. Sure. And I loved my name, Marla Maples. Right. Right? So I wanted to keep working. So I did a lot of on-air hosting. You're wearing the Michael Jordan t-shirt. I am. I'm telling you, I was one of his biggest fans too, always playing ball. And I had the chance to do a series of interviews from one of the entertainment shows. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'll do it if I can pick who I interview. So who'd I pick? Michael Jordan. It's still up on YouTube somewhere.
It is. We have to. Okay, well, maybe we'll put a link in the description so the listeners can listen to it.
To see me and Michael Jordan.
It's probably kind of fun, right?
It was a dream. Yeah. It was really a dream.
I'm sure he enjoyed it probably more than you.
We had a hoot. Yeah. And then we ended up working on the same set. He was doing I think we're on the Warner Brothers studio. Okay. And I was doing a film called Executive Decision with Halle Berry, Kurt Russell. And every scene I was in, that Halle was in, most every scene Halle is in, I had to be in these scenes. So I got to work next to Halle Berry for 3 months. And Jordan was on set. So he would come over and visit, we'd chat and catch up with each other. So it was really so sweet.
Cool. Very cool. And so not to talk too much about Donald, more about your kind of experience and just, right, you were a small town girl from Georgia. Yeah. Now you're in the spotlight. You're on the daily magazine and paper every day. Yeah. How do you write, it's easy in words, but how do you physically kind of maintain your space, be comfortable in public? Like, how did you navigate through that? Yeah.
Well, I think I cried a lot. When you see yourself on the cover of these newspapers, it was very, very painful. And they would get maybe 1% right, and the rest was sort of made up. So there were days that I couldn't get up and go to work.
Wow.
Like it canceled auditions. Go-sees, I would just cancel and just cry. And I had to dig deep for my faith during that time. My pastor, Dr. Arthur Caliandro, was a great help for me during the time. And my mom, my best friends, my dad were always there. But you still kind of have to go through the emotions on your own. But knowing you have the support, you can pull through it.
Right.
I've always read the Bible. When I was a kid,
Saving grace.
Saving grace is having that read it from Genesis all the way through Revelations 3 times by the time I was a teenager.
Really? Wow.
Yes, so I wanted to dig in and get the roots of all of it.
Right.
And so I became very deeply rooted in that work, even as a child. But it really counted when I was being challenged emotionally during those times. And during those times, I also had a stalker that came, and that was pretty I was actually opening on Broadway, and I had someone who had been breaking into my home, stealing a lot of things, and it was a huge betrayal.
Wow.
Because he had worked as my publicist, and just a big betrayal at that point in time. That was difficult.
How were you able to navigate that? How did you eventually?
I would literally go from being at the downtown in City Hall, testifying, and going back to rehearsals for my Broadway days. So there was always like a balance of light and dark in my life. It was just crazy interesting that, and I think like, was I creating chaos so I could learn how to get out of it? Right?
Interesting.
And now I try to say, let me learn it without having to create the chaos.
Exactly.
To show how I work out of it. Because my life as a Scorpio was a lot of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how do you bounce back from the lows? The highs everybody's aware of, but when everybody hates you and everybody's saying all these things about you, how do you?
Well, thank God you hold on to the ones that love you and that see you. And I was blessed to have amazing friends and amazing mentors and just beautiful, beautiful, family around me. And I don't know, but it was a period of just learning how to release everything I needed to release, right? Emotionally crying it out and releasing it, but knowing who I could go to and being on my hands and knees and praying so much, just down and like begging God to help guide my path, help me find the light.
And did you feel a need to kind of rewrite the story and express the truth, or did you just kind of hold it internally and like, this is what they're saying, I'm not going to try to change it?
I wanted to get it right. I spent too much time, in retrospect, too much time trying to defend myself when I should have just done what was in my heart and soul and gone out and done good works and continued to work and let that speak for itself. And I found myself wanting to defend all of my actions, but this, but that, but I'm really a nice person. I never meant to hurt anybody. It was like, I found myself just, please, I really love people. And, and it didn't matter. I wasted time trying to, get what I felt was my truth and story out there versus just living it.
Right. And not being and you and I spoke about this before the podcast.
Yeah.
The media, they just want to write negative. There isn't like a desire, even if it's a good story, how can we spin it, right? Yeah. And so I think that it wouldn't have read it. It's not our place to even think about that.
But I didn't know how bad the media was then either. I lived it firsthand. Now I see it because I have friends that are, are on the right, on the left, and the liberals or conservatives. And I mean, they hear different stories.
Right.
I mean, we are so separated by what the media lets be told, and it's heartbreaking. But I watched it in my own life at a very young age, and I didn't understand.
Or completely. What do you think's the last thing on Donald? What's the one thing about him that nobody really knows about his personality and who he is that is completely misconstrued?
Well, that he loves his kids, first and foremost, and he loves his country, and he would have never stepped in that position. With all that he has, there was no reason to do it unless he saw what was happening, and he saw how they were trying to steal our country and take away our voices and separate and divide us, and he felt called. When he and I were together, people talked to us about going and filling this position in the 90s, but I had a real strong intuition about it would be very difficult for the kids. My daughter was very young, but Donnie, Ivanka, and Eric were teenagers, and I said, Donald, let's do some good things.
Right.
But let's wait until the kids are a little older.
Yeah.
And so, of course, the kids were able to get involved in the beginning, this time. And I was no longer in the marriage,
Right.
of course. But just, I'm much more accessible to people.
Right.
So people that would want to reach Melania or Donald,
Yeah.
they were all coming to me.
Right. And you're going to be the spot on kind
Gosh,
Right.
yeah. So I've been like juggling.
Yeah, how do you
the last
manage
few
that?
years. Oh my gosh.
Is it a lot of like, I don't have time for this now, I'll push it off? Like, how are you?
Well, I pushed
Yeah.
off my own career and my own creative
Right.
dreams because this felt more important than anything
Yeah.
else. I mean, I needed my studies with the Kabbalah and my
Right.
and my and I'm a big Christ follower also. So
Right.
these studies were so important for me to hold it together. Having mentors, Aton's been my teacher for 27 years.
Right.
And then I have my pastor in California. They were both at the wedding for Tiffany
Yeah.
and Michael, by the way.
Oh,
We
yeah.
had them seated at the same
That's
table.
so
It was
combining the world, right? Beautiful.
absolutely. I mean, bringing Judaism and Christianity together
Yeah.
is so important. And that's what I love about my studies in the Kabbalah Center. No one ever told me I couldn't love Jesus.
Right.
Right? I
Right.
just was able to use these tools in this beautiful community.
Completely to
Right.
go in parallel with your connection. So let's jump to that. So you obviously have been spiritual and connected since a very young age. And being in the, actress and modeling world are very polar opposites to that.
Yeah.
How did you feel that it was aligned with you at the time? Were you trying to bring your spirituality into that? Kind of guide us through that.
I think that's
Yeah.
why I think one of the reasons I didn't work more as an actor is I'd always walk and carry my Zohar,
right.
my Bible, and like, put it down the table. And I'm like, gonna mess with me?
Yeah.
Because Hollywood was a bit of a mess. I knew
Right.
a lot of TV executives that could have been indifferent for me if I didn't have my faith. I could have probably worked more,
Right.
but no, that was never to be compromised.
That was the most important above all else, right?
Yeah, don't compromise your values.
Yeah. And for somebody who hasn't maybe been spiritual or practiced any sort of Kabbalah or other wisdom, what would be your advice to them as far as why they should or what?
Oh God, any pain you have inside, any relationships where you're being challenged, there's a way, there's a path out of it. And, I learned that, growing up as a child, and then especially with my studies in Kabbalah, I've watched so many people turn their lives around. Community is so important, but a community of like-minded souls
Right.
that really wants to be the best that they can be.
Right.
It's so important to have that group that loves and supports you for who you are and where you are and how you show up. Right. And even more so when you show up feeling battered and broken. People go, oh, Marla's always happy. Heck, no. I've shown up crying my eyes out at times, But because of that, I know, because the studies and the relationships and the friendships, I know how to convert it into the light and into the joy.
So the challenges still come, but you just have a framework and a table. You're navigating through it. It's not hitting you in the face and like, whoa.
Exactly. And I've got, the community to help be there, and it's so important. And that's what we do. We move through this constantly, moving, you share with your friends, they share with you. It's like a moving energy field to help and support and to give and receive.
Right. A lot of young women struggle to find their voice, especially in today's day and age with media and, other social factors. Yeah. I think you're a perfect example of somebody who's like, you know what, this is me, this is my authentic self, and this is who I'm going to be. Yeah. How would you advise a younger woman who's maybe insecure, has doubts about who she is? And
it's just, you need to really find I suggest going and taking classes. The center's a great place, but there's so many opportunities to find people that are doing spiritual practices that you can learn more about yourself. Take time alone to meditate, go into your silence, and just reach out to this higher power that's always been a part of us. Right. This power has always been a part of us. We just need to ask it to be here now, right? And when I ask, you get answers. Sometimes I'll go down to the beach and I'm just like on my hands and knees.
Wow.
And saying, please give me a sign. Someone will pass me on the beach and just start chatting with me. And she's someone that needs a little help, and she needed my voice and I needed her voice, and whatever it is, there's it can come, but listen to the answers and find friends that genuinely care about you, that aren't after you for your money or your prestige or what you're wearing, but really have your heart, and ask to have the signs to know. That's
what I was going to ask. Yeah.
Ask to get the signs.
Right.
And I tell the young girls, and even Tiffany's age, if you're going to go on a date, I do this too because I'm supposed to be dating now.
Right. When you say who's
well, because I'm pretty comfortable on my own.
Right.
But
so that's a good indication that you should.
Yeah,
fair
exactly.
enough.
And I'm ready for that partner. I'm ready for a partner that I can help, but it can help me.
Right.
And to bring that that balance in, and together
you have so
we
much
can
love
be
to give.
stronger.
Right.
Yeah, together we can be stronger. But I tell the girls, let's ask. God, let me see what I need to see in the beginning, so I don't waste my time.
Wow.
Because it can take a while.
Right, because somebody can show you a side of them, right? They're in it for something else, but from their point of view, they're like, hey, I'm just here. There's no agenda. How can you kind of see through that from the get-go?
Exactly. So I think Eitan told me years ago, it could take about 9 months to see the dark side of someone.
Wow, 9 months.
Well, sometimes you can see it faster.
Yeah.
But it's so easy to be so in love for the first few months, and then that time passes, and you're like, oh, what? Who is this person? I didn't know this person. Wait. Wait before you sleep with a guy until you've seen his light and his dark side. Because we all have them.
Right.
Doesn't mean you're a bad person, but make sure you not only can love the light side of the person, but even the side of the person that really struggles and may not present in the way that this side presented. Can you love them from both sides? If you can, then maybe it's something to step deeper into.
Right. But don't jump in on the honeymoon phase and say, this is it. No. 3 months in, I know, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Give it time to really develop and see. And keep yourself sacred. Have that sacred love over yourself and your sexuality.
Yeah.
Right? And know it. Is this someone I'd really want to spend my life with before you jump in bed with them?
All right.
Really, that's the way
to
prevent abortion, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, take responsibility. And listen, easier said than done. I get it, but that's really what I try to teach the girls, and I want to teach them that more.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I don't hear many people talking about that today, and I think it's super important, right? What else do you have except for your own respect of self and your body? And
and it's a sacred gift.
Right.
Keep it sacred. And
you only get one, right?
Yes. And if your value is so important, and you want to be with someone that can value all that you have to offer, not just your beautiful physical self, but the whole package.
Completely, what's inside as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So bridging off that, how do you, and I know you've mentioned this, I've seen it in your biography and online, that your Tiffany's your pride and joy, right? Like being a mother is one of the greatest gifts that you experience here today.
Yeah.
So how do you balance both being a mother, a strong female figure, and then also everything else that comes with it?
Yeah, well, it's ongoing. You got to learn as you go along. Now, I think no one can really prepare you for that. And every situation is different because every soul is different, right? And Tiffany came into the world when I was actually starring in that Broadway show.
Wow. So at the peak of the Broadway career.
At the peak of the Broadway career is when I found out I was going to have that little one. And but I had no doubt. I had no doubt that this child was meant to be something. It's there's a destiny here because it was not planned, and the career was booming, right?
Right.
So I worked on Broadway. Continued to work with my new contract 4.5 months pregnant, and I was still doing cartwheels and splits on stage, and till the outfits they couldn't stretch them anymore.
Right.
And I had a lot of offers that I had to put aside because being a mom was such a gift.
Right.
It was. I thought when I'm 40, after I've achieved a lot in the industry, then I'll be ready. But she came, before I was 30.
Wow.
Right? So I had to learn to balance it. And sure enough, after she was born, I had the chance to take the same show on the road. So I took her with me.
Really? She traveled throughout?
She traveled on tour with me.
Wow.
She had her little outfit like a cowgirl. And it was sweet to have her there. And I was booking a lot of movies after I had her. And it reached a point where she was like, I was going to Canada a lot to shoot these family movies and doing some independent films. And And she said to me, Mommy, me not want to go no more. Me not want to go. No fun, Mommy.
Really? She had enough of it.
She had enough.
Yeah.
So that's when I decided to stay a little bit more closer to home. And I got deeper then, into my spiritual practice and started a radio show of my own.
Before podcasts were
Before
a thing,
podcast,
right?
it was called Awakening with Marla, and I didn't have all this fancy equipment.
Right.
Sometimes I'd be on the phone calling it in. I'm
Really?
like, gosh, but I love the people that I could interview.
Yeah.
I just wanted to shine light on people doing great things.
Which was your favorite episode of that
Oh my
podcast?
gosh, goodness gracious! I mean, I had some. I don't think I ever had your mom or dad on, though. I did record an album, and your dad came on.
That's right.
It's called The Endless, and there's a song we did.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so beautiful of him reading in ancient Aramaic.
Yeah, I believe I've heard it's on Apple Music,
Open
right?
your eyes. It's
Yes.
on Spotify, Apple Music.
Yeah.
Open your eyes, and it's still so many people's favorite for that whole album. So that was a segue to the
Right.
music from the podcast. But I had
Right.
people like Dr. Michael Beckwith, Reverend Michael Beckwith, Deepak
Yeah.
Chopra, a lot of interesting
Dalai Lama, you did
thought
some work with,
leaders.
right? Yeah.
Came on board, and I loved that. It was just so beautiful. It was like one of those projects that came from waking up in the morning and saying, God, how can you use me? Please show me how. And I started getting like poetry. I started writing down these beautiful things, and I had the journal. And then I met a young composer at Farrah Fawcett's funeral.
Really?
I was at Farrah Fawcett's funeral. All my life, people are like, you look like Farrah. And I had the chance to meet her. And then I had the chance to be there for her send-off.
Yeah.
But the young composer introduced me. He was a songwriter. And he introduced me to a composer who took my words, and he said, I've got the most beautiful song for this. So we were able to work with what I was getting in lyrics with what he could hear. So we did a whole album. We brought in, the different thought leaders.
Yeah. And you never thought you'd be in music right after Broadway, or did you?
Well, no, not then. I did Broadway. I had to sing in Broadway.
Right.
My dad was a singer, and he represented a lot of talent. My dad did opera, theater under the stars. Wow. He had a rock and roll band. So there was a bit of destiny coming, but I didn't have the confidence.
Right.
So jumping into Broadway forced me to build on my confidence.
Right.
And the album was the opposite of Broadway, because Broadway is like building it to the back of the house, and this was like chill out music.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like breathy.
Right. Talking quietly, subtle voices.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that you're looking to now bring a podcast back at some form or capacity.
Don't hide your voice anymore. It's an important time in the world to share your light, share your wisdom, share your darkness, share what you had to come through to get there. So yes.
What's the premise? If you can give us a little sneak peek so our listeners can anticipate what.
Well, I think, love being the core and longevity being a part of it, because everyone's so interested about longevity.
Right.
But I really want to be able to bring, I guess, a voice to the things that maybe people are afraid to talk about. Yeah. And be able to hear both sides and find the beautiful place inside where we're all alike.
I love that. And the last question we'll ask you, and I think this is relevant to who you are as a whole, is what's one thing about Marla Maples that the world doesn't know that maybe you haven't shared before that you can.
Well, God, I'm pretty authentic. I pretty put it out there.
Right.
People don't really get, the other world doesn't really get how crazy and nuts I am. I'll try anything in sports. Give me a trampoline, I'll do a backflip right now. Or they don't know how important my spiritual practice is. You and I can share it because we met. I knew your mom and dad before you
I was around, right?
before you were around. So a lot of people don't get that. So I really try to share that more than anything. I struggle with golf.
Okay. Really? What's your handicap?
I don't even talk about it. I don't even keep score.
Everybody else is writing down a number.
Yeah, I'm like, I'll keep score when I have a really good round, but then I'm like, I'll throw it out. I'm really good off the tee, but I'm like, back of the game.
That's what it falls.
And it's hard because I played basketball competitively, tennis competitively. I'm now playing beach tennis, and I'm not good yet, and I want to be great.
Yeah.
But with those sports, it's like you can be aggressive,
right,
and you can win.
Right.
With the golf, it's
very
not.
Posed, calm, collective, and
You can't be aggressive.
Right.
You gotta keep visiting it. So, golf is a new one, but sports really keep me balanced.
Yeah.
Spiritual practice and sports keep me able to handle what's going on around. And I want to help people get well. I want to help people learn how to understand their bodies and the light that they each have within themselves to share.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Marla, connector of all things. Marla, thank you so much for being on. It was an absolute pleasure. Guys, we'll see you in episode 28. Thank you, Marla.